The broken trust. The shocking beginning. What do you do when the woman you love, the person you thought you knew better than anyone, disappears with your child? That's a question I've been asking myself for 5 years. 5 years of searching. 5 years of silence. But the truth? It was never about a disappearance. It was a lie. And the one who lied was the person I trusted most in the world. The morning in London seemed ordinary. The clear, cloudless sky reflected in the glass of the tall buildings on Regent Street, which buzzed with the sound of hurried steps, horns, and the laughter of people who had no idea how much life could change in the blink of an eye. Leo, a famous football player, walked with his headphones on, and dark glasses hiding a fatigue he couldn't explain. He had just finished a sports interview, and, for the first time in weeks, didn't have to smile for the cameras. He had the rest of the day free. Alone. He preferred it that way. When he wasn't in crowded stadiums or TV commercials, he liked to be just another face in the crowd. He took a deep breath, as if trying to find something he had lost without realizing it. Maybe peace. Maybe himself. Maybe something he couldn't even name. He turned the corner onto Oxford Street, and that's when it all began. Across the street, a young woman, maybe a nanny, hurried along with a small boy in tow. The boy was about 4 years old. He wore a blue cap and sneakers that lit up with red lights with every step. He watched everything with innocent curiosity. But the city is loud, and children get distracted. In one unpredictable second, the boy let go of the nanny's hand. She screamed, but it was too late. "Jamie, come back here!" The boy's name cut through the air like a siren. Leo took off his headphones, the sound of the woman's voice still echoing in his mind. When he looked up, everything seemed to happen in slow motion. The boy was running, stumbling, straight into the street. A big black car was speeding down the road. The driver didn't seem to see what was coming. Leo didn't think. His body reacted on instinct, as if his striker's reflexes were trained for this moment. He ran. He stepped off the curb, stretched out his arm, and pulled the boy hard. But the screech of tires, the sound of the car scraping the asphalt, and the shock. The boy fell. For a second, there was absolute silence. The nanny fell to her knees, trembling. She covered her mouth with her hand, as if to stifle the scream that was already tearing through her from the inside. The driver got out of the car in a panic, not knowing what to do. Leo knelt down. His hands were shaking. The boy was unconscious. His eyes were closed, his breathing too faint. So faint that it seemed to not exist. "Hey, little one, wake up! Can you hear me?" His voice cracked. There was no time to wait. No ambulance. No help. Nothing. He picked the boy up in his arms, feeling his limp body against his chest, and ran. The nearest hospital was a few blocks away. It felt too long. With every step, Leo felt a stranger's guilt, as if carrying this child were more of an emotional than a physical weight. He arrived at the reception, pushing the door open with his shoulder, sweat running down his face. "Accident? Boy? Help, fast." Doctors came running. One of them took the child from his arms. Another started asking questions, but Leo only watched the boy being rushed down the white, overly bright and cold hallway. The sound of the gurney wheels on the floor echoed like a hammer in his head. The nanny arrived moments later, accompanied by a security guard who was helping her walk. She kept repeating that it was her fault, between sobs and hands that trembled like leaves in the wind. Leo sat down, his hands on his face. His body was tilted forward, as if he were about to fall. He didn't know this child. He had never seen him. But something inside him felt wrong. He took a deep breath, trying to calm down. But it was useless. He closed his eyes. Images came to his mind. An old house, a backyard, The distant memory of himself as a child, falling off his bike and feeling the same emptiness in his chest. An oppression, a premonition. He opened his eyes, and for an instant, everything around him seemed too far away. The hospital waiting room, with its disinfectant smell and green walls, was the last place he imagined being today. But now, it was the only place that made sense. He got up. He needed air. He walked to the water cooler, but didn't drink. He just rested his cold forehead against the wall, trying to understand why his heart was beating like this. It was just a coincidence. He had just saved a boy. Nothing more. But his body didn't believe it, and neither did his mind. Leo was used to dealing with pressure. Championship finals, millions watching, split-second decisions. But this moment, this instant frozen in time, was different from everything else. He went back to the room and saw the nanny on the phone, crying inconsolably. She was trying to explain what had happened, but it seemed like no one on the other end could understand her desperation. Or maybe she just didn't want to tell the truth. Leo sat down again, crossed his arms, and stared fixedly at the emergency room door, as if he could see what was happening inside. The image of the boy, fallen on the ground, came back to his mind like a twisting knife. He didn't even know his name. But that look, before it faded, was strangely etched in his memory. Maybe because it was too innocent, or because it had something familiar that he still couldn't explain. A nurse appeared a few minutes later, calling for a family member. Leo didn't get up. He wasn't family. He was nobody. But something inside him wouldn't let him leave. He stayed, sitting, waiting, as if waiting for something he didn't yet know what it was. Time passed slowly. The people around him continued their routines of waiting, sighs, and lost looks. But for Leo, there was only that child. The only certainty he had at that moment was that this child needed to live, and that he needed to know why, out of millions of people in that city, he was the one who was there, at that moment. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it wasn't. The emergency door burst open violently. Hurried footsteps echoed down the hallways, and in a second that seemed to freeze time, the name Jamie escaped the lips of the woman who rushed in. Leo heard it, but what paralyzed him wasn't the boy's name. It was her face, Amelia. The impact was immediate. His body tensed. The air disappeared for a second, his eyes fixed on her as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. She was there, in front of him, out of nowhere, after 5 years. 5 damn years. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, her features marked by sleepless nights. But it was her. The way she ran, the desperation in her eyes, the fragility mixed with fury that only she knew how to carry on her face. She stopped a few feet from him, and when their eyes met, the world seemed to shrink. Everything around them, doctors, nurses, voices, footsteps, became a distant noise. "Leo!" Her voice came out trembling, more surprised than anything. She took a deep breath, like someone who has been punched in the stomach. "Leo, what are you doing here?" For a moment, no one said anything. She looked around, searching for the child. When she saw a nurse appear at the end of the hallway, she ran towards her. Leo followed her. He couldn't help it. "He's going to be okay." Amelia's voice was almost breathless, as if her heart no longer fit in her chest. "He's sedated, still under observation. The surgery will be quick, but we must act now," the doctor said, serious but calm. Amelia almost collapsed from nervousness. She leaned against the wall. She was crying, but without a sound. It was a contained, tense cry, the cry of a mother who feels helpless. Leo watched her. He was immobile, but inside him, something was already out of place. It wasn't just the shock of seeing her again. It was what this reunion meant. The doctor walked away, and the two of them were left there. In the middle of the hallway, facing each other, there was a huge distance between them, even though they were only a few steps away. The boy, and is he your son? The question escaped before he could filter it. She looked away and just answered, "Yes, he's my son." Leo felt his body grow heavy, as if he had been kicked in the stomach. He didn't know what to expect, but that confirmation hurt more than he thought. I saved him. He ran into the street. I just saw him, and I ran. I grabbed him. I brought him here." "You saved my son," she repeated, almost in a whisper. But her eyes remained closed, as if she didn't want to face everything that meant. Leo took one more step. "Why did you disappear like that, Amelia? Why didn't you tell me anything? Why?" She raised her hand, interrupting him. "Leo, not now, please." Her eyes, so distressed, pleaded more than words. And for the first time, he realized that he wasn't the only one who had suffered. She had too. Maybe more. The nanny arrived a little later, still crying. Seeing Amelia, she ran to hug her. "Forgive me. He let go of my hand. It was so fast. I screamed. I swear." "It's okay. It's not your fault. You did what you could," Amelia said, hugging her tightly. Leo stood there, still. He watched the two of them, but his focus was elsewhere. The name. Jamie. The name echoed in his head like an alarm siren. 5 years. Jamie was 4. The numbers weren't just a coincidence, but he didn't ask anything. Not yet. He was processing it, and trying to understand why, out of all possibilities, destiny had chosen this absurd intersection. The doctor returned and explained what they were going to do. Amelia nodded, but seemed to not hear anything. Her eyes were somewhere else, or in the past. Leo leaned against the wall, sat on the hard plastic bench. His head was spinning. An old pain began to resurface, like a wound forcibly reopened. His hands were sweating. His chest was burning. She still hadn't given him any explanation. No excuse. Not a single word about the years of silence, about the emptiness. But she was there. And that hurt. Minutes later, the emergency door closed, and Amelia sat next to him. The silence between them was suffocating. He looked at her sideways. Her profile was tense, but still beautiful. She held a chain around her neck with trembling fingers, and then he spoke to her. "You're different." She took a deep breath, but didn't respond. And the same at the same time. Amelia slowly turned her face. "I was 24, Leo. Do you think someone goes through what I went through and stays the same?" "What did you go through?" he retorted, with more anger than he intended. "Don't start. Don't start. You disappear from my life. For 5 years, without explanation. And you show up with a 4-year-old son, and you ask me not to start?" She fell silent, but her look hardened. "He's just a child, Leo, and I'm just a mother trying to save her son. I don't want to argue about the past in the middle of a hospital. You owe me that, and you owe me a million questions you never asked," she replied firmly. The silence returned, but now it was loaded with venom. The doctor appeared at the end of the hallway, and Amelia instantly got up. Leo stayed where he was. She went to the doctor, listened, nodded, asked questions, and returned with an even more tense face. "He's going into surgery in 15 minutes. Leo swallowed hard. "Do you need anything? Anything at all?" She hesitated. For the first time, she seemed vulnerable. "Pray for him. Just that." He nodded slowly. But deep down, he knew the prayer wasn't just for Jamie. It was for everything. And maybe for both of them too. The operating room door closed slowly. with a muffled sound that sounded like a gunshot in the silence of the hallway. Amelia couldn't stand up. She sat down, trembling, her eyes fixed on the void. Leo remained standing, his arms crossed, but his gaze went back and forth between her and that damned door. Neither of them said anything. A few minutes later, a nurse rushed by, shouting loudly, "O negative! We need O negative blood, now!" Leo felt his body freeze. That phrase, thrown into the hallway, hit him like a direct punch to the stomach. He knew that blood type well. O negative, very rare. It was his father's, his grandfather's too. A family thing. Genetics. He looked up, staring at the wall as if it could give him an answer. But he didn't need one. The name, the time, Amelia's presence. Now, the blood. It was too much of a coincidence. "I can donate," he said, in a firm voice, loud enough for the nurse to hear. She turned, surprised. "You're O negative." He just nodded. In seconds, he was taken to the extraction room. The sound of the door closing behind him brought a strange sensation, as if he were sealing a pact with something he still didn't fully understand. During the extraction, he didn't take his eyes off the wall. His mind was far away. He remembered Amelia 5 years ago. He remembered their last argument. He remembered her face, soaked in tears, saying things he refused to listen to. He was hurt back then, pained, confused, and yet loving her. After that, silence. Not a message. No explanation. Now there he was, lying on a gurney, donating his own blood, for a child who… No, the word refused to come out, but it was there, screaming inside. "Son?" When he returned to the hallway, Amelia was already standing, walking back and forth. Her gaze went straight to him. She saw the bandage on his arm. She understood immediately. "You donated?" He just nodded, without saying anything. She held back her tears with difficulty. "Thank you." It was the only thing she could say. "He has the same blood type as me." She didn't respond. She neither confirmed nor denied. She simply looked away. The silence between them was a minefield. Any word could explode. The surgery lasted a little over an hour, long enough to leave both of them on the verge of collapse. And then, finally, the doctor appeared. "Everything went well. The cut was deep, but we managed to stop the bleeding and repair the internal injury. He will have to remain under observation, but he is out of danger." Amelia collapsed. She cried right there, without shame, without control. Leo closed his eyes, as if that relief was also his. "Can I see him?" she asked. The doctor nodded. "In a few minutes. He'll be groggy from the anesthesia, but you can go in." Amelia looked at Leo with doubt. For a moment he thought she would tell him to stay out, but she didn't. She just nodded, with an almost imperceptible gesture. A few minutes later, they both entered the room together. The room was silent. You could only hear the slow and constant beat of the heart monitor. Jamie was sleeping. Too small in that white bed. Too fragile, with that arm connected to the IV. But he was breathing. He was alive. Amelia went to him. She gently ran her hand through his hair. She rested her forehead on his. Leo stayed a few steps away. He didn't want to intrude, but he couldn't leave. He approached slowly, and that's when everything changed. When he saw him up close, when he saw that sleeping face, something inside him broke. Black hair, straight, falling in soft tufts over his forehead. Light brown skin, the soft contour of his face, the tip of his chin, and the ears, the slightly prominent ears, exactly like his when he was a child. It was too much. He took a step back. His heart raced. His whole body went on high alert. He tried to rationalize, but he couldn't. It was no longer a supposition or a coincidence. It was a certainty. It was the kind of certainty the body feels before the mind accepts it. He looked at Amelia. She still had her eyes closed, breathing slowly with her forehead resting on her son's. But she knew. She knew he had seen. She knew what was going through his mind at that instant. "You knew?" he asked in a low, hoarse voice. She didn't turn around. She kept her hand on the boy's head. "Not now, Leo. You knew he could be mine." "He's my son," she replied, without changing her tone. "But maybe he's also mine." She turned around. Her eyes were red, but firm. "He has my last name. I raised him. I was there for every night of fever, every fear, every fall. You weren't. Why did you never give me that chance? Because you trusted anyone, except me." The room now seemed smaller, the air heavier. The boy's heart monitor continued its calm rhythm, while the two adults fought a silent war inside. Leo didn't say anything else. He just looked at the boy, closed eyes, serene face, faint breathing. And yet, such an overwhelming presence inside him. It was as if something had turned on deep inside, in a place he didn't know existed. Amelia sat in the armchair next to the bed. She carefully arranged the boy's blanket. Leo leaned against the wall. He couldn't leave, but he also couldn't get any closer. At that moment, the only thing he knew was that life, somehow, had just started again, without asking for permission. And he still didn't know what to do with that. Leo stayed still, as if the ground had disappeared from under his feet. He didn't speak. He didn't react. He just looked at her. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was heavy, cutting, like glass about to shatter. Amelia didn't hold his gaze. Her fingers were squeezing her arms tightly, trying to protect herself from a pain that was already there. Her whole body was trembling. Leo finally took a step forward. "You lied to me." His voice was low, without apparent anger, but with something more dangerous behind it. It was a cold, contained pain, a pain that burned inside. Amelia opened her mouth to reply, but was speechless. "You left me believing in something that was never true. You disappeared. You took everything from me, and on top of that, you hid my son." She took a deep breath, and still, her voice came out broken. "I didn't know how to tell you, and when I realized, it was too late." "Too late." He let out a dry laugh. 4 years, Amelia, 4. You had time. You. She took 2 steps back, as if she needed air. Her eyes, once full of defensiveness, now showed an older fear, a fear of herself. "Do you think it was easy for me? That I just woke up one day and decided to raise a child alone? That's not what I'm saying." "Then what do you want, Leo?" Her voice rose. "Do you want me to kneel? To say I was wrong? To beg for your forgiveness?" "No, I just wanted to know why. Why did you take that from me?" She closed her eyes, and it was as if something inside her broke. "Why did you hate me?" He didn't reply. The phrase was like a slap in the darkness, and she continued. "Why did you believe it? Did you believe what they said? What they showed? You didn't hesitate for a second. Do you think it was easy for me? I was lost, confused. You disappeared, Amelia. I thought you had cheated." She finished for him. The silence returned, but now it was loaded with things that were never said. "I tried to find you at first," she said, more softly, "but someone told me not to insist." "Who?" She hesitated. "It doesn't matter now." "Yes, it does." He took a step closer. "If someone pushed you away from me, I want to know." Amelia looked down. She closed her mouth, but it was too late. She had already opened the breach. Leo ran his hand over his face, like someone trying to wake up from a strange dream. Then he looked at her again, calmer, but no less hurt. You could have told me, even later, even with anger. I deserved it. He deserved it too. Amelia looked up, and for the first time, she spoke with a pain that was overflowing. I was 24, without you, without stability, without knowing what to do. I just wanted to protect my son, and to protect myself, to protect him from me, to protect him from what you had become at that time. The phrase hit hard. Leo took a step back. He swallowed. You thought I was a monster? No, but you hated me, and I was afraid you would hate him too. That confession disarmed any defense he had left. The anger turned into a lump in his throat. You hid him from me because you thought I would reject my own son. She didn't respond, but her eyes said it all. Leo leaned against the hallway wall. He looked at the ceiling, trying to find some logic in all this chaos. And now? He asked, more to himself than to her. Now, he's alive. And that's what matters? No. Now, I have a son. Amelia looked at him. There was something vulnerable in that statement, something that also hurt her chest. I never lied about who he is. I just never told. You know how cruel that is, don't you? She nodded. I know. He stayed there, still, trying to breathe. His heart seemed to want to jump out of his mouth. And what if he asks me who I am? He will. And what are you going to tell him? The truth, she replied, looking him straight in the eyes. For the first time, Leo didn't know what to do with that. He had waited so long for an explanation, and now that he had it, it hurt more than he imagined. But there, in the middle of that cold hallway, in the silence broken only by the distant sound of hospital equipment, they both knew that nothing would ever be the same again. What existed between them now was a child, a bond, a wound, a love that hadn't died. It had just been buried. Leo looked at the clock on the wall. All of this had happened in a matter of hours. But inside him, he felt like he had already lived an entire lifetime since he ran down that avenue. He looked at Amelia again. You have to trust me. She watched him closely. Trust isn't given like that, Leo. It's rebuilt, and it takes time. Then let's start now. She didn't respond, but she also didn't leave. And that was already a start. But a beginning still unstable, cracked by everything that had been kept for too long. Amelia returned to Jamie's room a little later. The nurse warned that he would be asleep for a few more hours. Leo stayed in the hallway, pacing in circles, his hands on the back of his neck, his gaze fixed on the floor. He was trapped between two worlds, the one he thought he had lived and the one he was discovering now. When she came out again, he didn't waste time. You said someone pushed me away from you. What made you disappear? I want to know who it was. She took a deep breath, leaning against the wall. She was exhausted, inside and out. It's not going to change anything, Leo. It's going to change everything. She looked down. She was silent for a moment, as if deciding if it was worth opening that door. And when she spoke, her voice was contained but firm. It was Chloe. He froze. Chloe? Yes. His eyes widened. His mouth was slightly open. He looked like he had been slapped. My best friend. The woman who said she was protecting you from me. The one who always reminded you how too intense I was. That doesn't make sense. Chloe was always against us breaking up. She was the one who showed you the messages, wasn't she? Leo stopped breathing for a second. How do you know that? Because I never sent those messages. Silence. She continued. She came looking for me, the day before you broke up with me. She showed up at my house with a cold smile, pretending to be concerned. She told me you already knew everything, and that you didn't want to see me again. She told you that? And more. She told me that if I insisted, she would end things. With me. And with any chance of us getting back together. Leo walked away, ran his hands over his face, paced back and forth. No, that can't be true. I've known Chloe since we were teenagers. She protected me from everything. She was always on my side. Exactly, Leo. She was always on your side, and only your side. You're saying that she loved you. The phrase fell like a knife. Leo sat on the hallway bench. His body no longer seemed able to handle so much weight. He stared straight ahead without seeing anything. She manipulated everything. She showed you photos, didn't she? He nodded slowly. Photos of me, leaving the university with Ben. She said that you and he were in a relationship. Amelia took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on his. Ben was gay, Leo. You knew that. But she gambled on your insecurity, on your pride, and you believed her. He stayed silent. There, swallowing words that no longer made sense. She destroyed everything. She only used the cracks that your distrust left. The words hurt, but they were too true to ignore. I was an idiot, he murmured, his voice cracking. You were a man in conflict. It's not an excuse, but it is an explanation. He looked up at her. And you? Why didn't you come back later, when time passed? She moved away a little, sat down beside him without touching him. Because I didn't want to raise Jamie in the middle of a war. He needed peace, and so did I, but I needed him. She looked at him, her eyes full of tears, but firm. You didn't even know he existed. Leo took a deep breath. The pain wasn't from now. It had been accumulating, silent, for years. Everything I lost, because of a lie, and everything I lived, without being able to share it with you. The two of them were silent for long seconds. The noise of the hospital continued in the background. Doors opening, hurried footsteps, whispers, and beeping machines. But there, in that small space of the hallway, time seemed suspended. I have to talk to her, Leo said, in a firmer voice. Not now. Amelia, I need to. She looked at him fixedly. What are you going to look for, Leo? Revenge? Justice? Or are you going to start filling that void with what really matters? He understood what she meant. The truth was there. It hurt, but it was exposed. Now, it was up to him to decide what to do with it. Leo ran his hand through his hair, his jaw clenched, his eyes moist. There was a war inside him. And yet, for the first time in years, he knew who he had to fight against. Leo left the hospital without saying a word to Amelia. He needed silence, not for a lack of things to say, but because, for the first time, words seemed too small in the face of the truth. He got in his car without thinking about the destination. He just drove. His fingers squeezed the steering wheel so hard that his knuckles turned white. His chest burned. His head throbbed. His breathing came in heavy, labored gasps. It was as if every kilometer traveled was tearing away the pieces he had swallowed during all those years. He didn't want explanations. He wanted the truth. He wanted to look her in the eyes, the woman he called a friend, and ask how someone could destroy so much and still sleep at night. He drove to the penthouse where Chloe lived. A tall, modern building, full of security. She always liked control, the view from above, the power to observe without being seen. He rang the doorbell, and seconds later, the door opened. She appeared with her usual rehearsed smile. Leo! Her voice sounded too natural, as if she didn't know what brought him there. But her eyes wavered for a second. He entered without being invited. He walked straight past her, without looking at her. He went to the living room, stopped in the middle and turned around. You lied to me. She calmly closed the door. The smile didn't return. What are you talking about? About Amelia. About my son. About everything. She took 2 slow steps to the sofa, crossing her arms. You're confusing things. You told me she had cheated on me. You showed me photos, messages. You made me believe a whole story. Chloe didn't respond immediately. She just looked at him for a few seconds. Then she went to the kitchen, took a glass of wine, and returned with the same cold face. I only showed you what you needed to see. The phrase hit hard, but it was the calmness with which she said it that scared him the most. You made me destroy the only love I had. You took me away from the woman I loved and from my son. Chloe drank the wine slowly. Her gaze was fixed on him, but empty, as if she knew this moment would come, and she had just been waiting for it. You don't understand, Leo. I did that because of... Because of what? He interrupted her, his voice oscillating between pain and anger. She put down the glass, and then she spoke. Because I loved you. The silence was instantaneous. 1 whole second of absolute silence. You, all this time. Since before her. Since always. I saw you break. I saw you grow. I saw you become the man that every woman wanted, except me. I was always here, and you never saw me. He took a step back, as if the ground had cracked. So you destroyed everything because I didn't choose you? Chloe now seemed different. The serene face gave way to a tension she had been trying to hide for years. I didn't destroy. I just removed an obstacle. An obstacle? He repeated, incredulous. You call the mother of my child an obstacle? She put the glass on the table without looking at him. You weren't going to be happy with her. She was unstable, dramatic, insecure. And what are you, Chloe? Are you healthy? His tone rose. He wasn't yelling, but it hurt. You manipulated everything. You pushed me away from her. You erased an entire history. And why? Why did you want me for yourself? She didn't respond. She just looked at him with a strange pride. You destroyed me. I loved you. That's not love. Love doesn't crush. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't sabotage. She took a deep breath, but now there was something unstable about her. I gave you everything. I was with you when you cried for your father. I defended you from the press, from businessmen. I saved you so many times, and you killed me slowly without me even realizing it. Chloe started pacing around the living room, restless. The facade of control was beginning to crack. She was going to destroy you. She was going to make you weak. You were an idol, a phenomenon. You needed someone like me. I needed the truth. She stopped. Her chest rose and fell heavily. Her eyes were moist, but she wasn't crying. Leo took a deep breath. His head was spinning. She was pregnant, Chloe. When you set all that up, she was already carrying my son, and I didn't even know. Now her gaze truly wavered. I didn't know. Of course you did, he replied coldly. Chloe approached, reaching out her hand, as if she still had hope of reaching something. Leo, I would do everything differently, but I did it out of love. You don't know what love is. And now what are you going to do? Hate me forever? He looked her straight in the eyes, and for the first time, he saw an empty woman. Not from a lack of feelings, but from the inability to love without destroying. No, I'm just going to remove you from my life. She blinked, as if she hadn't expected that. You're not even going to try to understand my side? Your side. He let out a dry laugh. You had 4 years to regret it, and you only confessed when you had no way to escape. I still love you, but I don't love you. It was the last phrase, without anger, without hatred, just the raw truth. Leo turned around, walked to the door. He opened it, and before leaving, he said, Don't ever talk to me again. Don't ever come near me again, or my son. And if you have an ounce of humanity left, you'll live the rest of your life with the weight of what you did." He closed the door behind him. The hallway seemed clearer, the air lighter, but inside, he was still carrying the debris of everything that had been destroyed. Only now, he knew the name of the earthquake, and for the first time, he could move on without looking back. Leo returned to the hospital late in the afternoon, his body tired and his mind throbbing. Each step down the hallway seemed to weigh more than the last. He didn't know exactly what he was going to say. He just knew he needed to say it. The door to the room was ajar. He pushed it open carefully and stopped when he saw the scene. Amelia was sitting in the armchair next to the bed. Her face was tilted, her gaze fixed on Jamie, who was sleeping soundly. She was holding his little hand as if she were holding her own heart. Leo stayed there, observing without being noticed. It wasn't just fatigue on her face. It was a mix of relief, love, and something he knew well. Fear. Fear of believing again. He gently knocked on the door. Amelia turned her face, surprised. Her gaze went over his body, as if she wanted to understand if he had returned whole. "Can I come in?" he asked, in a low voice. She nodded, without letting go of her son's hand. Leo entered slowly and stopped on the other side of the bed, facing her. He looked at Jamie, then at her. "Is he still asleep?" "He woke up a little, but he's sleepy from the medication." There was silence, but this time it wasn't hostile, just cautious. Leo took a deep breath. He put his hands in his pockets, as if that would help contain the emotion. "Amelia." She looked up. "I went to talk to Chloe." Her body tensed. And she confessed everything, without mincing words. She did it because she believed she loved me. She said you were an obstacle, and that she only showed me what she thought I needed to see. Amelia didn't say anything. "She erased our history, Amelia, and I let her." Now she looked at him, without anger, just with a different kind of pain. "You knew me, but you chose to believe her. I know. You loved me, but you thought I would be capable of betraying you." He closed his eyes for an instant. "I have no excuses, only regret." The silence returned, and he took one more step closer. "I should have fought for us, but instead, I shut down. I walked away. I lost myself." She swallowed. Her eyes were moist but firm. "You disappeared, Leo. You erased me from your life. And after, I had to learn to survive." "Alone?" "I know, and it hurts to have done that to you. But even more, it hurts to have done it to him." He looked at Jamie. The boy was sleeping with a furrowed brow, his lips slightly parted. So innocent, so oblivious to everything. "I lost 4 years, Amelia, but I'm not going to lose one more." She watched him in silence. "I want to be a part of his life, not just as a visitor, not just as support, as a father, and, if you let me, as someone who still believes in us." The words came out slowly, without rush, but with weight. She subtly wiped away a tear. Her gaze oscillated between him and her son. "Jamie needs a father, but I need to know if I can trust you." He walked around the bed, stopping in front of her. He knelt down to her level, and then he took her hand. "I'm not the man who believed in anything anymore. I saw what doubt cost me. I know what I lost, but I also know what I can still rebuild." She allowed him to take her hand, but she didn't squeeze it. She was still processing everything. "You can't just come back because you feel guilty." "I came back because I understood that I should never have left." She looked away, her lips pressed together. She was trying to stay in control, but the pain was still there, alive. "And what if I can't trust you again?" "We'll rebuild it, slowly, in the time you need." He was silent. Inside, he was a whirlwind. Memories, fear, longing, anger, all mixed together. But there was something in his gaze that she hadn't seen in a long time, wasn't there? Leo slowly got up. He looked at his son again. "He looks like you when he's sleeping." She smiled for the first time in days. A fragile, small, but real smile. "When he wakes up, he's just like you when you're hungry." He also laughed, softly. For a second, it was like going back in time. "Amelia." She looked up again. "Forgive me." She took a while to answer. "I'm trying. That's more than I expected. But don't ask me to forget." "I won't. I just want a chance to prove I've learned." She nodded slowly. Then she pulled the chair next to her. She gestured with a look. "Sit." He obeyed, with a half smile. The two of them stayed there, side by side, looking at the son who was sleeping between them. For a moment, no one said anything. But the silence no longer hurt like before. Now, there was space. For forgiveness. For a beginning. For everything that could still be. The following days passed with a strange gentleness. The hospital, which once seemed like an emotional battlefield, was now a silent refuge for reconstruction. Amelia and Leo took turns by Jamie's side, as if unconsciously trying to compensate, each in their own way, for the lost time. Neither of them forced long conversations, but there were gentle gestures of care, gazes that no longer fled, and silences that no longer hurt as much. The tension gave way to something more intimate. Presence. On the morning of the third day, the sun came in, filtered through the room's window. Amelia was sleeping in the armchair, her arms crossed, her body curled up. Leo, sitting next to the bed, watched his son sleep. His hand rested close to Jamie's, but without touching it, like someone waiting for the right moment to be a part of it. And then, without warning, Jamie's little eyes opened slowly. He blinked several times, confused, still sleepy. Leo approached slowly, smiling. "Hey!" The boy looked at him, attentive, without fear. Then he smiled, barely. "You're the man who saved me, right?" The question hit him deep. Leo felt the lump in his throat form, but he didn't back down. "Yes, champ, and I'm also your dad." For an instant, the room was suspended. The phrase seemed too big to be understood all at once. Jamie frowned. He looked from Leo to Amelia, who was waking up with the sound of the conversation. Then he looked back at Leo, as if he were putting together pieces he never imagined existed. "Dad." "Yes." "You're my dad?" "Really?" The boy looked at him for a few more seconds. Then he slowly sat up, with some effort, and opened his arms. Leo went to him immediately. The hug wasn't shy. It was complete. Instinctive. As if, even without understanding everything, the boy's heart recognized that body as a safe harbor. Amelia, her eyes still swollen from sleep, couldn't hold back her tears. She saw them there, hugging, and didn't try to hold anything back. She just felt. Leo kept his face hidden in his son's hair, his eyes closed tightly, trying to store that moment in the deepest part of his chest, like an invisible tattoo. "I thought I was never going to meet you, you know," he murmured, his voice still cracking. Jamie responded with a firm silence, tightening his arms around his neck with more force. Amelia approached the bed. She placed her hand on Leo's shoulder. He looked at her, and in that look, there was a kind of peace they had never shared before. No request, no reproach, just recognition. The following days were lighter. Jamie, although still recovering, seemed like a different person. He talked more, smiled more, asked everything. He wanted to know why Leo had left, where he lived, if he liked football. And Leo answered everything, with patience and tenderness, as if he were meeting his own reflection for the first time. On the 6th day, the doctor gave the discharge. Amelia and Leo signed the papers together. "Shall we go home, champ?" he asked, helping the boy put on his jacket. Jamie nodded, excited. At the hospital exit, while they waited for the car Leo had called, the three of them stood in front of the glass door. The city beat outside, alive, chaotic. But inside that small triangle formed between them, there was a comfortable silence. Leo looked at Amelia. "Do you want me to take you home?" She hesitated for 2 seconds, then nodded. "Please?" On the way, Jamie talked non-stop. He talked about his favorite toy, about the neighbor's dog, about the time he fell off his bike and cried secretly so as not to worry his mom. Leo listened to every detail as if it were the greatest gift in the world. When they arrived at Amelia's building, Jamie was sleeping in the back seat. "Do you want me to take him up?" he asked. "No need." "I can." Leo nodded, but before she opened the door, he gently held her arm. "I want to be part of his routine. School, doctor, everything. I want him to know he can count on me." "I know. And you too." She looked at him for a few seconds. There wasn't a smile on her face, but there was no resistance either. "We'll go slow." "That's okay." She carefully took Jamie in her arms and got out of the car. Before entering the building, she turned her face over her shoulder. "Thank you." He just nodded, his eyes moist. Then he stayed there, still, watching mother and son enter the building. And for the first time, he didn't feel the pain of seeing them leave. The next week, the world met a different Leo. In the decisive league match, he entered the field as always, focused, intense, determined. But something in him had changed. His eyes were different, his heart lighter. At 36 minutes into the second half, he scored the winning goal. The fans exploded. The whole stadium vibrated. But he didn't run towards his teammates. He didn't celebrate as before. Leo ran straight to the camera. He took off his jersey, revealing another underneath. White. Simple. With 3 words written by hand. Amelia. Jamie. My home. The image went viral. The newspapers exploded with headlines. Sports shows, websites, social media. Everyone wanted to know what had happened to the Spanish star, who was reborn on the field. But he didn't give interviews that day. He went straight home. He brought pizza, a board game, and a heart that finally no longer hurt. Sometimes, destiny stops. Not forever. But to remind us that love, even when wounded, can still begin again. Everyone carries a pain that they haven't told anyone. And sometimes, a story like this makes us remember our own. If this video touched you in some way, leave us your comment below. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Because many more intense stories are still to come.